Hey, everybody, this is your host, Stewart Kraintz, and welcome back to your Inside Track to Success. Got another great episode for you today, but before we dive on in, wanted to remind you to hit subscribe, leave a comment below. Would love to hear what your biggest takeaways are from today's show. And also, please share this out to the people in your network, in your life, so that they can continue to learn and grow and up level their lives as well. That's exactly why we do what we do here on the Your Inside Track to Success show, so that you can live your best possible life, in an episode format here. And it is free, guys. So help us out. It'll also help out the people in your world as well. So today's guest, guys, is somebody that I have had on the show before, and her episode was so well received. I knew I had to have her back. Yes, she is my wife, but she is also an absolutely phenomenal coach. She is a women's empowerment coach. However, she is somebody that has years and years of experience leading transformational journeys under her belt. Had to have her on again. Would like to welcome my wife, Jennifer Johnson. Welcome back.
Hello, thank you. Thank you so much for having me back again.
Thank you again for being here. And I know on our last episode, we spoke a lot about being permission to be our biggest, boldest, wildest, most authentic selves. And I'm just curious, in the couple of months it's been since that episode debuted, have your thoughts on being unapologetically ourselves shifted at all? Anything you would like to add in terms of what people can do for themselves in order to be their boldest selves in their lives?
I would say, yes, they have shifted, but in the direction of I double down on what I said before. Just I'm in an interesting journey in my life right now where I am discovering parts of me that at 44 years old I didn't know they were there, and I'm discovering desires and dreams and challenges and new things that come up, and it's like new things that it's like they're holding me back, some just challenges or obstacles, or I like to call them speed bumps, that are coming up for me. And so doubling down on being authentically myself, genuinely myself, unapologetically myself, and in doing so, being the invitation for others to do the same.
Yeah, and thank you for sharing that. And you actually hit on something that I think is worth discussing more, is that you are in this journey of learning more, growing in your own way, on your own journey, and realizing you have goals and you have dreams, and you are 44, like you said. And so for a lot of people, that's a limiting factor. Like, I am too old to dream, or I have X circumstance and therefore I can't have whatever the thing may be. And so, in your coaching and your own experience, how would you encourage people to go for their goals despite whatever circumstances that they find themselves blessed to be dealing with?
Yeah, I think that age is a big thing. I mean, age is definitely a big thing for me in achieving a lot of my goals, and feeling this need just to create something sustainable, and, having the 401k and having the vacation time and having the good benefits and having all of those things, so that I was also able to provide for my family. And it's interesting that those are the ways that we tell ourselves that we're able to provide for our family, but there's so many other ways that we're able to provide for our family too. I remember when I first started thinking about going back to school to get my degree, I was having a conversation with a good friend of mine. And I said, by the time I finish my degree, I'm going to be 50 years old. And she said, yeah, you might be 50 years old by the time you get your degree, but do you want to be 50 years old doing what you're doing? Or do you want to be 50 years old and have your college degree? And I was like, that's a really great point.
Yeah.
And so really just keeping that in mind, like, yes, time is going to go by. And some of these goals I have are several years out. And yes, I may be knocking on 50's doorstep before some of them become a reality for me. And I'm going to be there anyways. So do I want to be 50 years old saying, I wish I would have? Or do I want to be 50 years old saying, I'm so glad I did this because now I'm living the life of my dreams? Now what's next? What do I get to achieve before I'm 55 or before I'm 60?
Yeah. Yeah. And maybe even just another interpretation for the listeners, like you could say you're 50 years hot or you're 50 years young. Like
Yeah.
age is only a number at the end of the
Mhm.
day. Like, yes, things come with getting older. Yes, things come with the other circumstances that we're blessed to deal with. But I have always held the belief that likening life to a game, our circumstances are just the set of rules that we are personally blessed to play the game of life by. And
Mhm.
so we might as well be playing to win. I'm curious
Absolutely.
and I'm curious what your thoughts are on that and if you've seen any success in, supporting your clients going beyond their circumstances that may have been holding them back.
I think the most obvious thing is I'm the example of overcoming my circumstances. And so, my clients now, they come to me because they know I've been down a certain path. I was working in a job where I had the 401k, the benefits, the vacation time, the twice a year raises, the bonuses. Like I did have that job and I was so unfulfilled. And I wouldn't say I was unhappy because there were a lot of things about my life that were still working, but I was most certainly unfulfilled in my career. And, at the time I was a single mom and I was living in this tiny little, garden apartment. And it was a risk to choose to go back to school. It was a risk to choose to leave that job and take on my own coaching business. All of this was a risk. It's a risk even now to step into, another aspect with, learning to become a transformational trainer. Like everything I'm stepping into is a huge risk. And underneath it, there are a huge amount of not huge amount of circumstances, but there are definitely circumstances and I'm overcoming them. And so people are watching me do that just as I'm watching other people do that, right? We talked about this on the last episode I was on. It's like when we choose to step into something, we give people permission to do the same thing. I think about how many single moms I know just in my circle who I've watched go back to school and choose to follow a career path that they've always wanted to, in spite being a single parent, despite doing it by themselves. So if I do nothing else in my life, that's the fulfillment that I want to create in my life.
Yeah. No, and that's beautiful. And thank you for sharing. And I actually do want to focus in a little bit on the question of fulfillment. So many of us feel stuck in our lives. Like maybe we actually do have everything we thought we wanted, or maybe on the other hand, things are as good as we think they can get, but something's missing. It feels empty, feels hollow, or there's just this sense of there's more out there available for me or my family, whatever their personal situation may be. How do you coach people into finding fulfillment? Is it something that you find, or is it something that in your experience is created?
Yes. I think it's a little bit of both because I'm clear that I found the thing that fulfills me. I was volunteer coaching for a local for-profit organization here in Columbus. And I realized like, I love doing this and my job is getting in my way, but again, I was volunteer coaching. And so this fulfilled me. I loved pouring into people. I loved watching them expand and grow and run wildly after the dreams that they've always had. And the thing that was paying my bills, the thing that was my future, was very much so getting in my way. And so I'm clear that like I found this thing, but now I found it and it's something for me to nurture. I get to fan the flames and I get to make it bigger and let it expand and let it grow. So I think that now it's to, and repeat the question if I'm not answering it the way you had intended, but I'm in a space now where I am fueling it and watching it grow. And so when it comes to my clients, I say, oftentimes you have to take money out of the equation. Oftentimes we have to take our families out of the equation, which is so challenging. And if it wasn't for anything in our life, like if it wasn't for a paycheck, if it wasn't for our children, if it wasn't for the mortgage, if it wasn't for the things that do exist, what would you really be doing? Because usually we pull all of those reasons why we have to stay where we are out. When we clear that out, what we really love, what we really want is sitting there. And so clearing away the responsibilities, of course, we still get to be responsible, but we don't get to let the responsibilities hold us back, and we don't get to let them hold us small. And so clearing those things away, and then where does that fire in your belly come from? What really sets your heart on fire? What really gets you excited? What would make you jump out of bed every morning instead of hitting the snooze button 5 times? That's the place where we get to go. And I don't pretend that it's as easy as that, because I think that we often spend a lot of time in those places because, again, they're responsibilities and they're real. And our children and our families and our homes, and the mortgages and all of that stuff, it's very real. And we can have both. We can have the thing that sets our heart on fire, and we can be responsible with the commitments that we already have.
Yeah.
And I love that. I'm like, our children are responsibilities. Of course, those oftentimes our kids set our heart on fire as well. And it's okay if we have something that's separate. It's okay if it's our families and this thing that really fills me up, and this thing that sets my heart on fire, and this thing that causes the knots in my stomach, the excitement, the butterflies.
Yeah, and I love that. And I think that's something I hear a lot in podcasts, see on YouTube, see on Instagram, TikTok, pretty much anywhere we're consuming motivational, inspirational, kind of the stuff to get us going each and every day. A lot of it is very hard in nature. Like it has a very hard edge to it. The grind culture, so to speak, that I think serves a purpose, but also can be a little bit much. But a lot of the grind culture is about this like hyper focus on responsibility, and this hyper focus on, you know, succeed at all costs, wake up at 3 a.m., go to bed, the next day at midnight, sleep 3 hours, start an LLC by the time it's 6 a.m., stuff like that. I'm exaggerating, obviously, but in what you were saying in responsibility being, I think, both a motivating factor, but also not allowing yourself to be totally bogged down and not dream. I
Mhm.
was wondering if you could speak into that a bit more.
I think that the whole idea of like not how we don't allow ourselves to dream is just in what you said. It's the culture, it's the go, 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 do, work harder. What I know we kind of jokingly say this, but gosh, I'm having a hard time. You're like, quitters never, what do you always say to me?
Winners never quit, quitters never win, trample the weak, hurdle the dead. I will sleep when I'm dead. Like the whole
Yeah.
whole thing.
I mean, we joke a lot about it. Like, we tease each other a lot. And we say that to one another, but that's just the reality. Is if you really want it, you'll do anything. You'll sacrifice anything. Everything's all about sacrifice. What if it wasn't about sacrifice? What if you weren't concerned about what you're sacrificing? What if that's not where your focus was? And what if your focus was on what you're generating, what you're dreaming up? What if that little itty bitty spark that's just this, huh, wouldn't that be really neat?
Mm,
And then you let it get bigger, and then you let it get bigger, and then you let it get bigger, and then you put more focus on it, and then you put more focus on it, and it expands and it expands. Where what's the saying? Our energy, our focus goes where our energy flows, our energy flows where our focus goes. I'm saying it backwards, but there's a truth to it. Is whatever we're giving energy to is going to grow. And so, are we giving energy to all of the things that we're sacrificing to have what we want? Or are we giving energy to what we want and letting it become bigger and bigger and bigger? And I
yeah.
think that that's how we do ourselves a disservice with this go, 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 do culture that is, it's the American way, like work harder and you can have anything you want. I would love to see a space where we were like, sit with your vision, dream it up, focus on it, and let it expand. I would love
Y-
to see a world where that was our reality.
Yeah. And to your point, I think the United States is still one of the only countries out there that doesn't have, universal parental leave, for example. We're
Right.
just expected to take the bare minimum off for something as momentous and beautiful as bringing a child into the world, and then it's get back to the grindstone. And
Right.
you know I think the grand irony is isn't the child, for many of us, why we're working the jobs that we're working anyway?
But just something that came to mind when you said that was the process of enjoying the journey. It doesn't have to be a grind. It doesn't have to be a haul. What is in that journey that you can learn from, that you can grow from, that you can laugh, that you can create experiences from? And so enjoying the journey and while we're letting that fire in our belly expand.
What has been some of the most enjoyable parts of your journey?
You know, I think that the obvious answer for me is like in motherhood, with being a single mom and creating beautiful memories from the really trying times. Like, I remember one Christmas, we were getting ready to go to church on Christmas Eve, and I had spent the day in service. I had been working in the children's ministry, and our church has several Christmas Eve services. So I had served like three different services in kids ministry. And so my family was coming to the evening ceremony or the evening service. And long story short, we ended up not being able to get any seats. And then childcare was closed. So I couldn't get my son, who was probably only 4 years old at the time, into childcare. And I sat in the lobby of our church just so upset because I was now missing church on Christmas Eve. And so I packed my son up and we drove home, and the rest of our family was in church. And I just remember sitting there going, you know what? We are not going out this way. Like, this is not going to be the Christmas Eve that we're going to remember. And so, fortunately, a handful of grocery stores were still open. And so, we went to the grocery store and we bought a birthday cake and birthday party decorations. And we created a birthday party for Jesus on Christmas Eve. And that's one of, and that memory still lives on. And so, that's one of my favorite memories. So, it's like, I think back to just how challenging the single mom life was, but I'm like, gosh, I really would have missed that. I would have really missed that
Yeah.
memory had I not chose something different and chose to enjoy the journey. And so in motherhood, I would say that's probably one of my most favorite. And even in building my coaching business, it hasn't all been easy. And there's been a lot of tears and there's been a lot of frustration. And there's been times where I've even wanted to throw in the towel. But every step that I've taken to get me to where I am now is full of lessons. So am I choosing to extract those lessons and choose something different tomorrow? And then choosing to extract that lesson and then choose something different tomorrow. And so in those rough times, in those struggles, really sinking in and asking myself, what's the lesson? what's this? What do I get to celebrate? What do I get to acknowledge myself for in this moment? Like in the crud sometimes, what am I acknowledging myself for? And then choosing the lesson and then moving forward and using it to elevate me versus weigh me down.
Beautiful. Yeah, and I couldn't agree more. And for those of you listening, we've all had things that we have wanted, strived for, worked really hard for, and it just hasn't worked out one reason or another. Or maybe it was a lot more difficult than we thought it would be. But how often is the time that you're going to go on a trip and you miss the train ends up being one of the most epic stories that you've ever created for yourself? Like maybe because you missed the train, you take a cab and you meet an amazing Uber driver and they tell you the best restaurants in the city and blah, blah, blah. And so to echo Jen's point, it often comes down to our interpretations of how we're choosing to perceive our reality around us. And at the end of the day, ultimately, we're the only ones that are able to do that for ourselves. And I love that she mentioned acknowledgement, y'all, because we build self confidence by keeping our promises to ourselves, but only if we acknowledge ourselves for what we have accomplished. And I will say that until the cows come home. And so, Jen, knowing that you have come as far as you have on your journey, you're now somebody that is leading people, coaching people, training to lead large groups of people at one time. What is the challenge that's currently on your plate that you're the most excited about?
Ooh, that's such a good question. The challenge that I'm most excited about. I'm almost answering this question and I'm forcing myself to believe it as I'm answering it because I'm clear that the challenge that I'm having right now is stepping into something new and not doing it perfectly, but getting to do it again and again and again and again. And then just when I think I almost have it right, I get to do it again. And so the space in between when I do it the first time and when I nail it, it's that space because I want to do things well. I've been this way for as long as I can remember. I want to do things well. And if I don't do them well, I don't want to do it. And so that's the challenge that I have is I'm stepping into something where I'm like, I'm actually not doing it well right now. I'm doing a good job. I'm doing okay. I could probably give myself a little more credit than I am. And the lessons and the opportunity that is in my errors or
Mm.
my fumbles or my breakdowns, quite frankly, because there are times where I'm just like, you know what, I'm not going to do this today. Nope. And I fold my arms, and have a little pity party. And I bounce back. Of course I do. But there's lessons available in all of that. So not doing it perfectly, letting it be a little bit messy and staying committed anyways.
So going back to the idea of, maybe fumbling something, maybe something doesn't go quite the way that we planned, or maybe it's just an outright failure. You
Mhm.
already shared a beautiful example of turning that missed opportunity at church into a birthday party for Jesus, which ended up being a great family memory that you guys still talk about. I'm curious, what can people do in the moment when they notice the plan going off the rails to make that shift mentally for themselves to choose a better interpretation?
Laughter.
Tell me more.
It's laughter, you know, because we take this life, we take everything so seriously. And it's like day after day, minute after minute, there's challenges that we have. I mean, today, for example, we were at Target and the coffee creamer wouldn't scan and the U scan. And I was getting so frustrated with it. And I just handed it over to you and I said, make this happen, please. And I just started laughing because I'm like, I'm letting this coffee creamer get the best of me right now. This coffee creamer and this U scan is getting the best of me right now. And I just have to laugh about it because how silly. And 5 or 6 years ago, I would have let something like that ruin my whole afternoon. And so just like handing it over and laughing about it. Because again, the brain does whatever we tell it to do. The body does whatever we tell it to do. And so if you choose to laugh in that moment, your body has no clue. Your brain has no clue. It's like, oh, great, something funny just happened. Okay, now we're having a good time. Let's go. So instead of letting those moments take you out, like, yes, of course, like, I mean, I didn't belly laugh in the middle of Target. And also, like, what if I would have? What if I would have just chosen a belly laugh in the middle of Target? Because I'm pretty sure that would have impacted more people than just myself. Now, but what I did do is I chose just to laugh it off and choose something different. I'm like, here's the reality. Coffee mate's getting the best of me. U-Scan is getting the best of me. Husband, take care of this. And I just choose something different. Laughter is our best friend. Laughter is the antidote, for our anger, for our frustration, for our grief, for our sadness. Laughter is literally the all-time reset when we choose it.
Yeah, beautifully said. And y'all, this comes particularly in handy when we're parenting, because how often is it easy to just fly off the handle at our kids when they still haven't taken a shower after you've asked them 19 times and they won't get off a fortnight? And
Not that we would know anything about that.
not that we would know anything about that, Jennifer and I, but it is, again, choosing your interpretation not only can change your day and how you're moving through your day, as Jen just shared, with the example of the coffee creamer or something, much more severe, but it also directly impacts those in your immediate circle and your vicinity. So, like, thinking about how are the ways we're reacting to adversity showing up in our workplaces, in our goals, in our dreams, especially for anybody that is subordinate to us in any way, if we have employees or colleagues that report to us, or even our children or our spouses.
Mhm.
How we choose to move through adversity makes a big difference in our everyday lives.
Absolutely. And I'm watching that with, our 9-year-old right now, and just the level of frustration that he can get while he's playing a video game, or when he's losing, at basketball, or at one of his soccer games, or playing Marco Polo with his friends. And he can get so worked up, and teaching him just not to take things so seriously, and to laugh and to have fun. And I also am clear that there are circumstances where this isn't the antidote, this isn't the
Sure.
answer. And so I
Of
don't want to
course.
diminish anybody who's maybe listening who's facing some real life circumstances. Just to be clear about that. Yeah, I mean, I think about that with him all the time, or how he might say something so absurd or so ridiculous, or he's so frustrated or angry with me, and just his reaction, just like, I just start laughing, and it instantly breaks that tension, and it instantly creates something different.
What do you feel like is the key for that, when inevitably there are the times when, you've just hit your boiling point, and keeping it cool?
I think the big thing for me is just like pausing and breathing,
Mm,
because when we're in that fight frame of mind, there's nothing good that's going to come of that. So just taking a step back and breathing and pausing, taking a step back first and pausing and taking that breath and choosing something different in the moment. There's a trainer that I've been in the room with several times, and she's absolutely magnificent. And she'll say, right here, right now is the only time and place something new and different can occur. And so, like, noticing when I'm constantly at odds with my 9-year-old over his Xbox, or taking a shower, because for some reason in his 9-year-old brain, he thinks taking a shower is punishment. And I'm like, I can consistently be at odds with him about this if I choose to, or in this moment, I can choose something different. It's this moment right now where I have the opportunity to create something different with, and that relationship with that boss who really pushes your buttons, who is a micromanager, you know, I I can let them back me up. I can let them make me angry. I can let them, have me sitting in a corner munching on peanut M&Ms with a tissue. Not that I've ever known that before. Or I can choose a different interpretation. I can choose an empowering interpretation. In our marriages, I can continue this fight right now, and I can take it all the way until bedtime, and we can continue to yell and scream at one another, or right here, right now, in this moment, I can choose something different. And so stop, pause, breathe, and choose something different. And
Yeah.
then you do it again, and then you do it again, and then you do it again, and then it's the habit. I had a friend of mine tell me the other day that when the event happens, my reaction and then how quickly I bounce back, she said, it's been shocking to me how that timeline has shrunk. And it's repeatedly choosing it over and over again, choosing something different today, and then in an hour, and then in 5 hours, and then tomorrow, choosing something different.
Yeah. Beautifully said. And for those of you listening to this, it's not if you're going to stumble, it's not if you're going to fall, it's not
Right.
if you're going to fail, it's how quickly can you get back up.
Right.
And you think of the saying, I know it was kind of beaten to death during the Dark Knight trilogy, with Christian Bale starring as Batman, but they say you fall down, you learn to fall down so you can pick yourself back up. And the speed and quickness and efficiency to which we are able to do that and get back in the game in our relationships towards our goals, so on and so forth, whatever the thing may be, is often a direct reflection of how many times we've had to do it. So what I'm getting at for you listening folks is, don't avoid the drama, don't avoid the negativity, because it is part of life. It's there to help you grow, and it's feedback.
Dare we say avoid the mistakes, the messiness?
Correct. Yeah, and our egos, folks, want to avoid the mistakes because we want to look good, we want to feel good. We also just genuinely want to avoid discomfort because our egos associate the discomfort with a lack of survival or danger, or something bad just generally is going to happen to me. But through the chaos is the bright tomorrow on the other side. And so I know that that's a bit of me just kind of getting on my soapbox for y'all for a second there. But, with two life coaches here on this podcast episode, we've just seen it enough times with the people that we've coached just to know that this is true. And honestly, if you read any self help book, if you listen to any other podcast, they will all tell you the same thing. It's just worded differently so that it resonates and lands in new and exciting ways with different examples. So take it from us, definitely lean into the discomfort and choose something new, because that is how you can break through and create something on the other side.
Yeah, I know you've heard me say this before, but I'm like, follow the vomit. People always think I'm so crazy when I say that. But when you feel that churning in your stomach, that's actually what's available. There's something on the other side of that for you. So when when people are like, oh, I feel nauseous, follow it, follow the vomit. I'm not offending anybody by saying this, but that there's something available on the other side of that. So noticing where that discomfort is, noticing where the resistance is. I had a friend say to me one time, she asked me a question. I'm like, oh, well, I'm really resistant to this. So I know that's where I get to go. She's like, why
Mhm.
are you punishing yourself? And I couldn't even understand what she was saying. And she was like, it's like you're punishing yourself by choosing the things that are uncomfortable for you. So I don't know. It's not punishing myself. I'm choosing freedom, because that's what's on the other side of that. Whatever it is that I'm resisting, whether it's fear or being uncomfortable or, whatever it is, that's what's on the other side, the freedom for that.
Yeah. And I had this reflected to me in maybe a way that's equally as offensive as the phrase follow the vomit. We had somebody come and speak to one of our classes in college. He was a hotshot sports executive. I know he ran, I think, the sales department for the San Francisco 49ers for a long time. I'm forgetting his name, but I will never forget that he said, run towards the burning building. So if you see a problem, if something feels scary, the magic is there for you on the other side. And so just another way to say the same thing that Jen was saying. So knowing that we've been chatting here for some time now on this episode, what are a couple of ways that you think people can support themselves in pushing through the discomfort to have those breakthroughs?
I would say two things that come up for me. One is journaling. I've not always been an avid journaler, but it's something that I've chosen to take on intentionally here recently, because when we're not in our head and when we're just, I prefer to type because I type quicker and it's effortless for me. And so I just type, and then whatever is in my mind, whatever is in me is just like coming out. And I notice that I'm talking myself through stuff as I'm journaling. And so getting it out of here and getting in a space where I can take it in again visually, and rereading my own words can sometimes be really impactful. I'm like, "Ooh, I said that to myself." The other thing that comes up for me is creating a support system of people where you can tell them these things, like where you're holding back, your fears, your shortcomings, where you notice that you're stopping yourself, so that you can tell somebody else that, so it's not just living here or in your heart or in your head, but you're getting it out and you're telling people who are going to support you and navigating that. So whether that's your closest girlfriends, whether that's your husband, I'm fortunate that I have both. I have two friends in my life where I'm like, if I don't want to take something on, I do not tell them because if I tell them, they're going to be behind me going, go, 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 and pushing me along the way and challenging my stinking thinking. So yeah, journaling, because it's an opportunity to be incredibly honest with yourself and do it in a space where you know it's going to be safe, because it's Brene Brown that says shame hides in the darkness. And so, like, getting it out, but also if it's stuff that not everybody gets to see, then like journaling in a safe space where it can just be a release, and then creating that support system of people who are going to push you and energize you and challenge you, and who aren't going to buy into your BS.
I love that. True friendship is holding you high, I'm hearing you
Yeah.
say.
Yeah, I true friendship is holding you high. And I think that's important where we're also meeting people where they are, because I'm also clear there are times where I'm like, I'm not in a space that I want to be held high right now. I right now I'm in a space where I'm just processing. So, being clear on what you want. So right now what I need is just for you to hold space for me. And I'm verbally just letting it go. I'm verbally processing right now. Okay, I'm done. What do you got? Give me some feedback. How are you? What am I not seeing? What am I pretending not to know?
I love that. I love that. Very important to know how and when to support the people in our lives. And is there anything wrong with just asking to be supported the way that you want to be?
Oh, it's so good. I think there's two things. Ask the person that you're going to, like, can I ask him permission? Can I unload right now? Can you hold the bucket for me? Can you hold space for me? Do you have the capacity to do that right now? Because we don't always know what the other person is experiencing. So asking for permission first. And then also saying, because this is actually what I need right now. Right now, I just need to release. I just need to get it all out. I just need to verbally process right now. I'm not ready for feedback. I'm not ready to be held high. I just want to be angry, or I just want to be a victim about it, whatever it is that you need. And also, like, when your friends come to you, I have a friend that's really great about this. And she says, who do you need me to be right now? So if I come to her with an issue and I haven't told her who I need her to be, she'll tell me, and Stu, you do this with me too. He's like, who do you need me to be right now? Do you need me to be your husband? Do you need me to be a coach? Do you need me to be, you know what I mean? Like, who do you need me to be? And so getting really clear on that too, because I've definitely created messes in some of my relationships where I wasn't in a space I wasn't in a place where I could hold space for what they were bringing me. And then I wasn't giving them what they needed from me.
Mm,
And so it definitely can create a mess. So being really transparent about that on both ends.
I love that. And thank you for sharing that as well. And, I wish that we had the time to continue on in this conversation, but I guess that just means we're going to have you back on the show for sure. And, since you're here, since you are a coach and since you do amazing work with people in up leveling their lives, especially in empowering women to take control of, but also just manifest the life of their dreams. How can people get in contact with you, learn more about yourself and some of the work that some of the services you provide?
You know what? The easiest way to get a hold of me is just to email me. And so I'll provide my contact information and Stu can put it. I also have a workshop coming up next week and it's free. And it's all about, we talked about this earlier, the thing that lights your heart on fire, the thing that causes the butterflies in your stomach. How do you bring that vision, that desire, that goal? How do you bring it out of your being and like make it a reality? The things that stop us up, the things that get in our way, whether it's the lack of knowledge, the lack of support, and there's other things. So I'm doing a free workshop on that next week. And so I can send the link for that as well. And it's free to attend and it's going to be great. I'm going to drop some nuggets of wisdom. We're going to create some accountability and some support and fan those flames.
Love it. Awesome. And we will also be sure to provide Jen's general Eventbrite link as well, because she's always coming up with new workshops, new ideas to support you in up leveling your life and creating the life of your dreams. So if you miss that workshop, definitely be sure to follow her so you get the notifications when she posts new workshops and opportunities to learn and grow with her as well. But before we log off, please be sure to comment below on what the greatest takeaways were for you for this episode. And also, again, guys, share with a friend. This show can only grow as much as you support us. And we are giving you our absolute best so that you can create the life of your dreams. And without further ado, before we sign off and say goodbye to Jen, what are you acknowledging yourself for today?
Oh, you do love that acknowledgement, don't you?
Sure do. It's going to be a part of every episode, I think.
I know. I love it. It's so good. I am acknowledging myself for not running from the things that scare me to death,
Mm.
but leaning into the people that can support me in getting there.
Can you tell us a bit more about that?
Specifically, my journey to become a transformational trainer scares the holy heck out of me.
Hmm.
But I'm fortunate that I have women in my life who have taken that journey and that I get to lean into them for support and guidance and coaching. And so instead of running, I'm choosing to lean in, I'm choosing to double down on it.
Beautiful. Thank you for sharing that. And folks, if you are feeling resistance towards your own goals, towards your own dreams, towards your desires, reach out for coaching, either myself or Jennifer. We are there to support you. It's what we do. But as Jen said in her acknowledgement to herself, like just double down, because that is where the magic lies, is on the other side of the resistance.